No more checks. Using WIC is easier than ever. WIC is a free nutrition program that helps working families stretch their food budget and make healthy choices. WIC helps families learn to shop for nutritious foods and provides recipes for healthy meals. There's even online nutrition education and an app to make shopping easier. WIC, good food, and a whole lot more. Call or visit us online to find out if you qualify.
Pull up a seat and join us at the Good Food Project table. Ann preps chicken breast 3 ways: baked, fajitas, and chicken meatballs. Stay tuned. The Good Food Project is next.
A nice big steak and fries to go. Listen to what I said. I need something more than soup to keep me satisfied. Give me food, that's what I want.
All right, so we're back. Halita's not here, and I must have lost my mind because I'm going to prepare 3 nights worth of chicken all by myself. So I have about 4 pounds of chicken here. And the fun part about this, I got this, it was buy one, get one free, always looking for the deals. But you can usually get the family pack, which is about 4 or 5 pounds of chicken. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make chicken breast, I'm gonna make fajitas, and I'm gonna make meatballs. So I'll start with my chicken breast because that does tend to take the longest. You can use whatever marinade you want. Just to stick with the theme of using the same ingredients, I'm going to use the dressing that we used in our rice bowl. Again, it's olive oil, fresh garlic, Italian seasoning, and apple cider vinegar. So I'm just going to take 2 chicken breasts, and I want to get them about the same size. And I'm going to put them in. I'm just going to put a little bit of marinade right on the top. Okay. This is the easy one. So this will have a nice Italian seasoning flavor. The oil on it will keep it nice and juicy. And I'm going to throw it in at 350. Based on the chicken breast size, I'm going to check it about in 20 minutes. Okay. Next thing I'm going to start on is the fajitas. I'm going to use one of the big chicken breasts they have here. Chicken breasts aren't typically uniform, so it's really good to make sure if you're cooking something like chicken breast in the stove that you're using 2 about the same size. So for fajita, I'm just going to cut strips. The good thing about making chicken fajitas is you don't need a lot of chicken. You can really fill the dish with peppers and onions. All right, so just cut it in strips. You want to take off any part that's kind of stringy. It's usually the tendon. And with the chicken strips, just like anything else, you want to make sure they're uniform in size so they cook evenly. You don't want half the chicken overcooked and half the chicken raw. And last, I'm going to take the other chicken breast and I'm just going to slice it and I'm going to throw it into my food processor. You can buy ground chicken, but if you're trying to save money, buying the chicken breast, throwing it in a blender or food processor, especially when you're meal planning and using some of the same ingredients, it's a better value for you to buy the family pack of chicken and just ground it down yourself. You know, not every night meat needs meat. You know, we have beans, you have fish. All right. Okay. And I'll put a couple more in to ground the meat down. And it doesn't have to be for meatballs. You can ground it down for taco meat. But since I'm using the Mexican seasoning for the fajitas, I want to change up the flavor a little bit so it doesn't feel like you're eating the same thing every night. So I'll turn it on. I'm just going to pulse it. I'm going to put that in my bowl, and I'm going to start on the fajitas. Now, because I've been touching chicken, I don't want to cross-contaminate anything, so I'm going to go wash my hands, and I'll be right back.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
So here's where the fun part begins. So now I have my chicken, which is just starting to cook up in a little bit of olive oil. And I have a little bit of olive oil getting warm. I'm going to saute some onion and some garlic and some peppers for tomato sauce. And I'm going to start the fajitas. All right. I'm going to move my sauces to the side for a second. And I'm going to start, you don't need to cut the onion too small for the fajitas, but you do need to cut it small for the sauce if you don't like big chunks of onion. I'm going to start with my bear claw. I've cleaned all of my raw chicken out of the area. You know, all the food's being cooked anyways, but it's always good practice to fully clean and sanitize the area in between raw meat and fresh vegetables. Now, if you notice, I don't have a whole ton of vegetables or ingredients on the table, and that's my favorite part of cooking this meal. I don't need a whole bunch of ingredients, I just need different spices. So to start with the tomato sauce, I'm going to mince the onion down. I'm going to get it on its flat side. Use my bear claw so I don't cut my finger. And with sauce, you can use as much or as little as you like. I like a lot of onion in sauce, so I'll use a lot of onion. I don't have Halita here to cry while I cut the onion, which is kind of sad, but I'll live. Right now, Halita's out in the community spreading the word about WIC and all the fun things that we do here and all the good work we do with pregnant women, breastfeeding women, and children. Okay, so I'm still mincing down my onion. I think I'm going to need another onion. But to start off, I'm going to put this in my sauce. And you're going to hear a nice sizzle when we get this into the pan. Going to give my chicken a quick stir, so I don't want it to burn. It's on a medium heat right now because I'm going to put some onions and pepper in there as well. I think I need a little bit more onion for my sauce, so I'll split this onion between the fajita and the sauce. Okay. For the fajita, I'm going to use just big chunks of onion. You don't really need to cut into it. But again, I'm going to cut it down for the sauce because not a lot of people like a chunky sauce. You always want to watch your fingers, even when you're working fast, so keep that bear claw. Okay. So when I'm meal prepping, I like to start with whatever takes the longest and work my way down. That way I don't have to spend too much time in the kitchen waiting for one thing to cook. So for my fajita, I'm just going to slice into the onion. Okay. I'm going to throw that in with my chicken to brown. Give a little stir in. I'm going to go for my other onion. I can hear the onions and the sauce sizzling. I'm also going to add garlic before I add tomato to the sauce. But if you add the garlic when you add the onion, it could overcook and it will get more of a bitter taste. With fajitas, you can add whatever you like. I've had corn in them before. But my favorite is really just peppers and onion. More traditional when it comes to the fajita. So I'm using some leftover pepper from a previous recipe. So it's already a little bit sliced. So I'm going to add the sliced pepper in to the fajita because I'm going to mince my pepper down for the sauce. So again, I'm working quickly, but I'm always keeping my bear claw there because I really don't want to cut my finger. One more cut through the pepper just to make sure it's nice and small for the sauce. Again, if you like a chunky sauce, you can keep it chunkier. I mean, you can even put strips of pepper in your sauce if that's the way you like it. Toss that right into the sauce and let that heat up. My fajita looks a little bit on the sad side, so I'm going to add a little bit more pepper to it. I'm going to reach over the one pan that's not on. And just for color, I'm going to add orange. When cooking, I love to add color. I don't know why. It tastes the same, but for some reason when there's different colors in it, it just tastes better. And again, this is a quick cut. You don't have to mince it down, but you still want to watch your fingers. Okay. So I have my chicken and my peppers cooking. I'm going to turn it up a little bit because I want the onion and the pepper to brown a little bit. And for my sauce, time to add some garlic. Now, anyone who's watched before knows I like to use an insane amount of garlic, but it's to taste, so if you're not a garlic fan, you can use as little as you like. So I'm going to push down on my garlic to just loosen up the outside of the garlic, the skin. And I cheat, I use a garlic press. Oops. Push down. Starting to smell good. I can smell my chicken breast in the oven as well. So I'm going to put my garlic in my garlic press and I'm going to put it right into my sauce, which is starting to sizzle again. So I'm going to give it a little stir. Whew, hot back here. If I was cooking at home, this is when all the windows would fly open, even in the middle of December. I'm going to keep adding my garlic. So I like to work on these a little bit longer because they need to sit and saute and cook to add, to let all the flavors mix well. You notice I still have some ground chicken sitting there, and that will be for the meatballs. And we'll get to that after our sauces get going. Okay, and one more clove of garlic. I'm going to give one last stir, and this is where I'm going to start using my canned tomatoes. If you notice, I only have 3 cans of tomatoes open. I have 2 crushed, and I have one peeled plum tomato. So I'm going to add 1 can of crushed for the sauce. I'm going to turn it down because I'm not looking to burn it. All right. I'm going to add a little bit of crushed to the fajitas. And because you don't really need the whole can, I just want to make sure there's a nice coat in there. I'll add the rest to the sauce. Okay. And look at, I'm sharing ingredients here. Last, I have my plum tomato. And again, I said I like the chunky sauce, so it's going to go into the sauce. I don't need the liquids, so I'm going to just use my knife to pull out some of the tomatoes. And I'm going to split it again between both recipes. Get some more texture in for the fajitas and some more texture in for the sauce as well. So far I've used pretty much all the same ingredients in both. I'm going to add a tiny bit of garlic to the fajitas because, like I said, I like garlic. But not as much. This one doesn't need to be so overpowering. Okay. And this is where the difference comes in. I'm going to use the taco seasoning that Julie used earlier. And I'm going to start with 2 tablespoons. There's no salt in this taco seasoning. It's onion powder, garlic powder, cumin, and chili powder, a little bit of cayenne pepper. So it's not adding salt to the recipe, just flavor. Okay. And for the sauce, I'm going to add Italian seasoning. Okay. All right. I'm going to give it a little stir. And I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to let it cook through, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Maybe a hand with that?
Oh, thank you. Did you see anyone's broccoli? You moved this? Thanks for helping us.
No problem.
Is this strawberries? You're welcome.
We'd do anything for kids. Yet 1 in 6 children in the U.S. struggle with hunger. Help end childhood hunger near you. Learn how at feedingamerica.org.
And we're back. So we have our fresh herbs. So I'm going to add a little bit of fresh basil to our sauce. I'm going to cut it into small pieces. What you can do is bunch up the basil. Just use your knife and slice through. You can also use scissors. If you have nice clean scissors, you can snip your herbs into whatever you're cooking. Fresh basil gives everything a great flavor. Okay. I also have some parsley out. I'm going to add the parsley to my meatballs, which is what I'm going to start next. So before I start my chicken, I'm going to cut up some of my vegetables because, again, you don't want to cross-contaminate your vegetables with your raw meat. And before I touch anything raw, I'm going to give my food one more stir. On the break, we checked the chicken, and it's still pink inside, so we're going to let it cook a little longer. The fajitas smell good. So, I'm going to cut my onion, bear claw, one thing you can do if you're using a food processor to puree your meat, to make it easier, you can really just throw the onion right in with it. I like chunkier onion, so I'm gonna hand cut it. I have a little fresh parsley to go in as well, and I'm gonna slice that up as well. So I'm gonna make a flat side to my onion. I'm gonna cut into it. And I'm gonna cut in the other way to make nice, even chunks. Again, you can puree it, so it's not as noticeable in your meatball. But especially with the chicken meatball, you know, chicken doesn't have as much flavor as beef. And you may remember when we made our bean meatballs that we added a lot of extra garlic and onion just to make it nice and flavorful. That's 1/2 of my onion. again, even though I'm going fast, safety is my first priority, so I have my bear claw. And my second priority is making sure my time isn't wasted, so I'm going to give this a stir so it doesn't burn. I suggest tasting everything as you go with a clean spoon, of course, because while it sits there, you can add more of the flavor to it and let it cook through. All right. So, surprisingly, I may have cut a little bit too much onion for the amount of chicken I used. So I'm going to pull it over here, and I'm going to put part of my onion in because I need to make space for my parsley. I'm just going to do one handful for now. Again, this is one onion, and I'm going by sight here because I like onion. Okay. Before I touch the chicken, I'm going to move on to cutting my parsley. And you want to make sure all the stems are out. Put your hand in the bear claw and cut through as small as you can with the parsley. I'll start with one handful of parsley, which will equal about a tablespoon. I'm going to cut a little bit more just in case I need it, because again, I'm not going to want to touch both and cross-contaminate. Take out any stems you find. And one more little handful of the parsley. Now, before I get rid of this and move on to my chicken, I'm going to get my garlic going. I'm going to start with 3 cloves. These are smaller cloves. Maybe 4. Those are really small cloves. And again, I'm going to push down on my knife just to break the skin off. And I'll cut the end, and it's nice and easy to peel. If you don't like a strong onion flavor, like Julie said, you can pre-cook the onions and garlic a little bit. So I use my garlic press, as you probably remember, but it's easy to just mince the garlic as well, if you don't have a garlic press. I can smell those fajitas. All right. So I have all my garlic in. I'm going to add, I'm going to start, with the breadcrumbs. You want to start with just a little bit, half a cup, and go from there. You may find that your chicken's really wet and you need to use more breadcrumbs. And I'm going to add 1 egg. The same thing with eggs. You don't want to cross-contaminate, so you want to put your egg in. And now no touching fresh vegetables. So I'm going to go wash my hands and we'll be right back.
40% of food in America never gets eaten. When we start to think differently about our food, we can get a lot more out of it.
All right, so we're back. I cleaned up my area again because I don't want to cross-contaminate my cutting board. And we're going to start in with the meatballs. Gloves back on because I'm touching raw meat. Now, you can use a spoon or a fork or whatever you want to mix, but this is where I like to get hands-on. This is also a great area to have kids help in the kitchen. Kids love stirring. Because it is raw meat, I would definitely suggest that you give them a spoon or a fork to stir it. But they can get hands in as well. Just remember to remind them that, it's raw meat is not something they want to put there in their face, their mouth, or anything fresh. So as I mentioned before, you always want to keep the breadcrumbs out because you want to make sure that the meatballs stick. This looks pretty good. I'm going to add just a tiny bit more breadcrumbs. And as I do this, I have my oil. So probably adding another tablespoon. Okay. I'm going to get both hands in because I'm going to get ready to roll my meatballs. All right. Looks good. So I want these to cook rather quickly, so I'm going to do nice small meatballs. Now you want to do this quick because you do want them to cook evenly. So I'm going to go one after another. So when you take the meat out, you want to make sure you squish it down so they don't fall apart, and then just roll them between your hands. The oil on the pan is hot, so you want to make sure that doesn't splash. If kids are helping you, you definitely want to put it on a plate and not right onto the pan. You can also bake your meatballs, which cuts out some fat because you're not using the oil. Since I have some chicken in there right now, I'm gonna cook them on the stove top. Now I'm using some fancy cooking stuff here. Of course, at home I would probably just use my 4 burners. You can hear a nice sizzle. Okay, I can smell some of them burning a little bit. Not really burning, but it's something I want to stir. So I'm going to grab one of my spoons, making sure I only touch the spoon I need. I'm going to give these meatballs a little push around the skillet. Again, you want to make this process as quick as you can. If you're not a skilled meatball roller, you may want to put it on a plate before you put it on the pan. Okay, so everything's cooking. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean my area, and when you come back, I'm going to have all these meals plated out for you.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation.
America, let's do lunch.
Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
Welcome back. So I plated everything. The last thing I want to do is garnish our fajitas with our scallions, courtesy of Framingham Access. So I'm going to slice those nice and thin. And I'll leave some if anyone wants to put a little extra on. Just going to throw that right across the top. A little squirt of lime juice. And we have everything that we made today. We have whole wheat pasta with our tomato sauce that we made with our chicken meatballs. We have our Asian-inspired rice bowl, which you can eat plain. It has a little bit of protein in there with the lima beans, or the edamame. We have our vegetarian rice bowl, which you can eat plain, or you can add it with chicken and tomato and a little bit of extra vegetables, as we did. We have our Mexican rice bowl, which you can eat with your fajita. Or we also have some corn tortillas, which you can get on your WIC benefits. And any of these would be good with any type of cheese. A little bit of cheddar on top of the fajitas, a little bit of feta in the vegetarian bowl, however you like it. Yeah, and that's those are our meals for the week. Again, we cooked it down to scale, so we didn't have an overabundance of food here today. But it's possible, so you don't have to eat out every night. You can eat fresh and eat healthy. Thank you for joining us. For all these recipes and all your information about WIC, you can find us on Facebook. See you next time.
For this recipe and others, you can come to one of our cooking classes on Tuesday from 4 to 5 p.m. and Fridays from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. or like us on Facebook at facebook.com/framingham.waltham.wic. We encourage you and your families to participate in one of our cooking classes. Hope to see you soon.
Something more than soup to keep me satisfied.